obviously just kind of looking into this race, a lot of eyes on it, and just a big talker with everything going on in the community. So we just want to let our viewers know more about you and everything that you stand for before they go to the polls. So first, why don't you just talk to me a little bit about your story, why you decided to run?
Sure. I'm a stay-at-home mom. I have 4 kids. I've always been really involved in the community, whether it was with the PTA or volunteering with my church, other organizations in the community. And ultimately, I became aware of some very concerning things in public schools. It was sexually explicit and age-inappropriate books, and many of them. So I went through all the local channels, talked to administration, I spoke before the school board multiple times, and just really didn't get a result. So I started going to Austin every week on my own time, just trying to advocate for my community and other parents who are very concerned for their children, just the different things that were coming at our kids and our families that were concerning, and hoping to make a change for the better of our community, to protect our kids, and just fight for our families. The family values is extremely important. So those doors just really opened for me in Austin. I served on the subcommittee for the Republican Party of Texas for the legislative priority to stop sexualizing Texas kids. So that meant being engaged with advancing legislation to protect children, whether it was consulting on bills, testifying for bills at the committee level or beyond. And we were really successful, and so I was encouraged. And along the way, I made some excellent relationships, including the governor. I was really encouraged by other legislators in the Senate and the House. So I just really started to think about if that's what I was called to, if that's what I was supposed to do. And like I said, the doors just opened, and it seemed like the clear answer to where I was supposed to be in this season of my life. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
What's kind of the timeline on that, when you really started going down to Austin and getting involved that way?
It was in August of, not this year, obviously, so a year ago, August, yeah.
Okay, wow. Talk to me about the campaign, since you've decided that this is, the path you're going to take, what that's been like for you, what all that's entailed.
Truly, I'm having a really good time. Just getting to know more people in the community, to hear what's on their heart, what they care about. I love meeting with people face to face, and I've been received with overwhelmingly positive support. I think people are just concerned with so many things. I'm hearing border issues, which is number one for everyone. I'm hearing heavy burdens on property taxes. Also concerns for our children still, that's always at the forefront of families and also other community members. Kids are our future. So those are issues that I hear all the time, and people are ready for a change. So they're very supportive.
Sure. I've been, following you on Twitter. Seems like you're going door to door, sitting in people's homes for some of that campaigning.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's that like when you get to actually talk to people like that face to face?
It's absolutely the best. Yeah. It is my favorite part about campaigning. Just getting to meet people, and like I said, to hear their hearts, to hear their stories. And that's ultimately what I want to do as a representative. I want to represent my community and the things that they care about. And I know if given the opportunity that we would have a seat at the table, given the governor's support and other legislators at the state level, that we would have a seat at the table, our voice will be heard. And I've been proactive in advocating for my issues in an effective way. Now we have a law. I took my issue of the books all the way to the state. Now we have a law of mandatory library standards, so I know I can be effective at this, and I want to do that for my community.
Sure. Let's talk about the governor's visit here. What was that like for you to be a mom and then have the governor here to back you?
Yeah, I won't lie. That was overwhelming and just really surreal. It's one of those things that makes it feel so much bigger than me. This is not about me trying to get a political position or start a political career. This was me answering a call and stepping through a door that was open to me, and just being surrounded with support. And I think it just goes to show that there's a hunger and a need for effective representation for strong leadership in Austin. We have to have it now, and our communities are crying out for it. So I think the governor identified me as the fighter that would partner with him in advancing that legislation that we want in Texas, not just here in Bell County, but across the state. So I was honored, very honored and overwhelmed to be identified as that person that can really help our community.
Absolutely. Obviously, one of those big issues that we know is important to the governor as well as you is this school choice issue. And I know you have a personal connection to it. Want to share a little bit about just more about your story there?
Well, foundationally, every parent has to be the decision maker for their kid's future. Right now in Texas, we don't have school choice in the means where funding follows the student. And that's something that is in 30 other states, that it has been a benefit, not just to families and outcomes, but also to public schools. I think there's a lot of fear around that issue, and probably just because of change. But if we don't have to guess about what it's gonna look like. There are other states that have already done it. They've worked out the kinks. They've shown that this is an excellent thing for everyone, that everyone can win. And I would love to communicate, I'm not against public schools, and I'm certainly not against educators. I want what's best. I want them to be even better. And if we look at our outcomes, too many students are falling behind. That's not to blame anyone. That's only to state the obvious. It is what it is. Education is not a one-size-fits-all model. And so we have to acknowledge that some kids need something different. But if finances or for whatever reason it hinders them, then that can really be detrimental to their future. And ultimately, our entire community will suffer.
Sure. What do you think can be done for public education in a system where we have ESAs in Texas? Where that exists, what can still be done for public education, do you think?
We're always going to invest in public education. I think specifically, we need to make sure that we are recruiting good teachers, that we are retaining good teachers, and that we're rewarding good teachers. It's important that we continue to invest in that and to measure what works, to look at the outcomes of what's working, what needs to go, because truly, I look at our teachers and they're working so hard and they're so overburdened because they're being asked to be everything to everyone. It's not sustainable, it's not realistic. So, and I can't blame them. I think that the sentiment among educators is so low, and that breaks my heart because they are so important in our community.
Right. Would you support a bill where school choice and funding for public ed stood alone, where they were each their own entity? I know that was part of the complication this last time, is that it felt like it was all tied up together.
Yeah, sure. I don't think that these issues are opposed at all. I think they're both to the goal of providing a student with the best education. And who gets to decide that? It has to be the parents. So in states that have school choice, the vast majority continue to choose public education. That's wonderful. That's great. We always will have a need for public education. No one is turning their backs on it. And in those places, no schools have been defunded. I think there's a lot of fear that's being circulated, and that's unfortunate because if you look at the data, it's just not substantiated, those fears.
I know one of the fears in particular is for rural areas, right, that just thrive on the school. That's the base of their economy in some rural parts of Texas. How would you kind of combat that argument?
Well, I think we're in a unique situation. We are in a fast growth area. In fact, it seems we're often hearing that there's overcrowding in our schools. We have to continue to pass bonds. So when I look at the data that shows school choice results in about a 5% reduction in enrollment, I think that would be offset for our area. It might not even be felt in the ways that it's feared that it would be felt. And it's possible that the services could be reallocated in a way that's more efficient and better served.
Hugh Shine has argued that he obviously voted against this because he thinks it will ultimately raise property taxes for people here in Bell County. What do you say to that?
I don't know how. I can't imagine that happening. And if he was worried about that, knowing that this was so crucial, that our community wanted this at the rate of 88.7% among Republican primary voters. We wanted it. So if he had an issue with it, why didn't he write a bill that accommodated his fears?
Sure. Only other thing I think I have on that topic is just obviously private schools don't have as much accountability, and there could be situations where a private school can pick and choose what students get let in. So what would you say to families that have that fear that their child ultimately still won't be let into a private school at the end of the day, even with ESAs?
We're not trying to recreate public schools, and ultimate accountability is given to the parents with an ESA or school choice. So if a school isn't the right fit for a student, the parents won't choose that school. And I think there's also a limited understanding of what ESAs could be. They're so much more versatile than the understanding of vouchers. We hear about vouchers all the time. Vouchers was not in the legislation. That actually isn't part of the discussion. ESAs are more of the model, similar to a health savings account, where these funds can be used for qualified vendors and purposes, whether that's tutoring, yes, private school tuition, but it could also be curriculum. There's so much more variety that it's actually really exciting that we're on the cusp of some really incredible innovation and education that I think will benefit all Texas students.
Yeah. Maybe the last hurdle there is just where that funding comes from. Any thoughts there?
Absolutely. Well, the bill that was recommended that made it the farthest came from the general fund.
Yeah.
That's where the money came from.
Sure. You mentioned the border. I mean, that's huge right now.
Yeah.
Tell me about your thoughts there. What can be done?
Well, I have a unique experience with Mexico. My husband and I lived in Mexico for 3 years. I taught English there. He was working on his career. And we actually saw a shift in the political climate in the time that we were there. It was about 2008, and there was an election. It was President Calderon decided to take on the cartels, and unfortunately he didn't have the support within the country to make the difference that he hoped to make. So it essentially resulted in a vacuum, and turf wars and the violence and the cartels really kind of amped up. And so it's from 2008 we can see that there was a drastic shift, and it's only gotten worse. So Texas has a constitutional right to defend our borders, to protect our citizens. And right now, the current Mexican president is not working with Texas, but actually against the efforts that Governor Abbott has made. Our state legislation have tried to enforce, and so has President Biden. And so we're really at odds with those two entities, and we're going to have to do something. No one's coming to help us. It's up to Texas, and you know what? I'm going to put my money on Texas.
Sure. Trying to think what else. I know some of your other things, some of the things you're advocating for include, the social media stuff with children and limiting some of that danger as well.
Sure. I think it's so alarming that we're looking at a drastic increase in mental health issues among our youth. And there seems to be a direct correlation with social media, smartphones, and I don't know that we fully fleshed out all the details of that, but I think it's definitely worth engaging and evaluating where should the limits be, especially in the process of development. It's definitely something to look at. That was one of the things that I worked on, was to protect kids from adult websites and online dangers. I think it's really important.
Absolutely. Anything else that you want voters at home to know about you and just about what you stand for?
Yeah, absolutely. I care about the citizens. I care about the taxpayers. I think that our voice needs to be heard. I think that we need people in Austin who are effective at passing legislation that will benefit the areas that we represent. I want to represent District 55, Bell County. That's the issues that I'm advocating for, and that those are the ones that have my ear and they have my heart. And I'm going to give everything to this, just as I did to these other issues. This is what I want to do, And I know that I'll be effective just in the relationships that I've made, the experience that I have, and I'm excited. I'm excited for the future of Texas.